All right. We are back in, folks, and welcome to this week's episode of the NYC Video Podcast, a show that explores New York's film and video industry by spotlighting different filmmakers and talking to them about their experiences on and off set. I'm your host, Tom Chavez, and on today's show, I'll be talking with Ben, a local 52 electrician who, after working a grueling 24-hour-long Beyonce music video, was inspired to create a phone application called the Available app. Now, in a nutshell, the Available app taps into your professional social network to help you efficiently crew up video productions without having to send out millions of text messages and emails to freelancers explaining the job name, the rate, the dates, the locations, etc. And for crew members, they can quickly find replacements for themselves within their network. Producers can source available and qualified production assistants for their shows. Film students can connect with other hungry filmmakers to assist on their thesis films, etc. What started out as a really simple idea to connect local filmmakers has since grown over the years into a really useful tool for union and non-union professionals all over the country. Now, both Ben and I studied together at Brooklyn College, and we both went on to carve out careers for ourselves in the lighting department of film productions. But while I chose to focus on non-union jobs like interviews and branded content spots, Ben chose to join the local 52 union and work on some of the biggest productions shooting here in New York, like Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Blacklist, and even an upcoming remake of the classic film Home Alone. So I was really happy when Ben agreed to do today's show because as someone who isn't in the union, I have a bunch of questions about the benefits of working on union shows versus non-union shows. Also, I'm curious about what others do as a side hustle because if I've learned anything this past year, it's that as a filmmaker, I'm essentially non-essential when the world falls apart due to a pandemic or some major catastrophe. So I think it's important for us filmmakers to learn from other filmmakers and develop side hustles when productions come to a grinding halt. Also, just a heads up, we'll be throwing around the term G&E, which for those of you who aren't in the film industry, it stands for grip and electric. Both Grips and Electrics work side by side on video productions to execute the look of a production. Through lighting, they help rig certain pieces of equipment, they supply electricity to the different departments on a film set, and a bunch of other unique duties that we'll discuss later. Also, if you stick around to the end of the episode, Ben and I will share some useful resources that are available to freelance filmmakers here in New York. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's conversation with Ben and also talk about his backstory, creating the Available app, and working union gigs before and after COVID-19. What's up, Ben? How you doing? Good morning. Thanks for being with us today, this morning on Sunday. How are you doing?
I'm good.
So, a quick question. I know your last name is spelled NG. How exactly do you pronounce that as a person from Hong Kong? I don't want to butcher it.
Most of the people in America would pronounce it ing, like ing, Ben ing. In Hong Kong, you kind of pronounce it
Do you say the N at the end, or is it just like a hum, like
I would tell people as a hum. It's like when you're tasting really tasty food.
Okay, so Ben.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool, man. Okay, so anyway, I wanted to jump in today, about like your backstory. I want to learn about the Available app, about you, being part of the union and stuff like that. So let's start out at the beginning. Now, we spoke earlier, and you mentioned that your parents, they immigrated from China to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And then why did they immigrate?
They actually trying to escape communists in China. They actually have to swim over a river to Hong Kong.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you know how far that is?
I don't know. I would say at least 100 feet.
That's wild.
And there's always patrol. You gotta learn kind of how to swim a little bit. Or else you'll get caught. They say it's kind of deep. It's not like you could just walk over. You need to swim.
Okay, so they arrived in Hong Kong, and then how long did they live in Hong Kong before they moved to New York?
I would say at least 20 years.
So they lived there for quite a bit, and then they ended up getting some kind of opportunity and moving to New York?
Yeah. My grandfather actually born in the U.S., and then he moved back to China. That's how we able to. So he using his status, the U.S. status, to able to apply for us to come over here.
So your parents, they moved from Hong Kong to New York. When was that, more or less?
We moved here in 2001. We moved to Bushwick.
And how old were you when you arrived?
I was 15.
Okay. So they arrived in 2001. Was this before or after the Twin Towers came down?
We arrived 2001 January. So I was in high school in Lower East Side. It was a shock. I saw the whole thing.
Wow.
It was burning for weeks, and I could smell it. It actually, there's a story about it. I still remember to this day. So one of my classmates, we were sitting in the back, and he wasn't paying attention. It's a history class. He was keep looking out the window, and then at one point he was telling me, "Hey Ben, there's something hit the World Trade Center." At first I said he must be bullshit, and I keep listening what the teachers telling us, and then the second one hit. He tell me again, "Hey Ben, look outside. There's a plane hit the World Trade Center." There's the second one. I still don't believe him.
Wow.
And then later on, the announcement on the speakers told us that there had been a terrorist attack hitting the World Trade Center, and then I was like, "Oh shit!" He was telling me the truth.
That's pretty wild. What was it like, I guess, being, like an immigrant in New York when this whole thing happened?
It's different. In Hong Kong, it's like about 7 million people in a smaller space. There's a lot more people on top of each other. We're building up work because there's a lot of mountain in Hong Kong. But when I moved to Bushwick, I kind of love it. There's a lot less people. I could actually walk on the street, not bumping into anyone.
Sure. It's much different than Bushwick today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So you arrived in 2001. You arrived in Bushwick. What did your parents do, I guess, off the bat when they arrived here in New York?
They actually don't speak English. So at first they trying to go to Chinatown to learn take some classes.
Oh, sorry. Did they find jobs right off the bat? Because I can imagine being, from a different country, moving to New York City, it's a major culture shock. What was the early days like when you and your family arrived in New York?
So my father used to be a foreman in a construction company.
Okay. So he's a foreman?
In a construction company in Hong Kong. And then he also helped build the airport in Hong Kong. And when he moved here, he doesn't speak any English. So he became a furniture mover for a Chinese company in Chinatown. And my mom used to be a stay-at-home mom in Hong Kong. And now when he moved here, he became a manicure.
So she was a manicurist, right?
Yeah.
Did you speak English when you arrived here, or is that something you kind of learned when you got here?
I do speak some English, but not much. In Hong Kong, when I'm in school, they teach us English, but it's only 45 minutes per week. But the thing is, we don't speak it daily. We only speak it in that class. So sure. It's I do understand it, but not as good, I'm still not that good right now.
Yeah, no, hey, your English is perfectly legible. I can totally understand it. So you arrived here, you were, taking classes, 9/11 happened, and then take me back to when did you first start getting interested in film production?
So when I was doing this after school program, we going to different local store and conduct interview and try to learn the history of it. So we were walking around, and then we saw this really old electronic store at the corner by our school. So we went in, and then the owner is a older Jewish woman. She probably in her 60s. And then we start asking her a question, and then she was telling us how she escaped from the concentration camp. And that interview was really emotional, and I feel being there, able to capture that moment, it was really powerful, and we were there to translate the emotion into images. That changed how I feel about filming, and that's how I get started. To this day, I still remember that moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're a 17-year-old from Hong Kong interviewing a lady from what I imagine is Europe about her concentration camp in New York City. So to me, that's the amazing thing about New York. People from all over the world can kind of come and trade stories and share ideas. And I think we're so fortunate to work in film production where we can capture these stories and share it with other people. It's an amazing thing. Okay, so this is around 2004. You're about 17. You're kind of getting ready for college, and you kind of decided that you wanted to maybe study more or learn more about the craft of filmmaking. Where did you apply for school?
I went to Brooklyn College.
Just for the record, I did go to Brooklyn College with Ben. He's an old former classmate of mine. So, okay, so you decided to apply to Brooklyn College, and it seems like you secretly wanted to be a filmmaker. Did you tell your parents about your ideas of pursuing a career in film production?
Not at first. Because in Chinese culture, we, the parents always want you're either a lawyer, doctor, or engineer. They want me to study computer science first.
So, when you started college, did you start as a computer science major or?
Yes, I started off computer science, but on the side, I still like working on like small film projects. So my first job was in with NYC grad. First day was PA, and then second day was like sound recording.
So so you were working as a production assistant and you were also working as a sound recordist?
Yeah, they would teach me just hold the boom and then recording and all that.
So hold this, press this button, hold this boom over your head, and we're good.
Yeah, it was like my second day. So when I was doing studying computer science, I was on the side doing freelance to understand what's the film industry.
Well, so when I met you, it was in the film production program. At that point, had you switched majors to film production, or did you graduate with a degree in computer science?
I think I started doing film maybe 2004, 2005, I think. I did a lot of math classes and computer science classes, and then I started to take the intro to film classes.
And then did you ever switch majors to film production, or?
Yes, after about a year and a half, I finally switched my major to film.
Okay, so you get out of school, you're starting to kind of look for work, and then like, how did your early days kind of work out? Like, how were you finding work?
Was able to start building my network, like from like NYU student shoot to more independent shoot, short and feature, because I was able to meet people in those like NYU shoot, enable me to connect more contact and build my network and like save people contact into my phone, and that's how I able to like get job like after college. After like the first 2 years, I able to like more concentrate and get more work and get more contact.
Do you think that it was worth 4 year investment of time and money and stuff like that of going to college as a filmmaker?
I think it's definitely worth it going to Brooklyn College. I paid Brooklyn College so I could able to do film on the side if I want to. And the price is really affordable, you know?
I think it was around $3,000, like I think a year. It was crazy cheap. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I was able to save money to put it toward my thesis film, you know? The money that I don't have to spend on tuition into my film projects. So I kind of learned what I learned on set, and then I also able to learn film theories in Brooklyn College, because I didn't grow up in America, so I didn't watch a lot of older film. So it was eye opening for me. It's like studying and in film school, and I able to learn more the American culture and how the film business got started.
Yeah, that's actually something really interesting that you bring up. And I grew up in the 80s and 90s, here, and I watched a lot of like blockbuster movies and movies that like a teenager would watch. But I would have never watched the classics like the Romer or the Lubitsch, Hitchcock movies and stuff like that. Citizen Kane with, by Orson Welles, the classics that really, defined or created the art form of narrative cinema. And going to Brooklyn College exposed me to like these really classic movies that I would have never probably watched on my own. You appreciate basically when you see movies now a lot more, knowing where cinema started and how it kind of evolved over the years. So
Yeah.
did you have any kind of mentors at Brooklyn College that kind of helped steer your career?
Professor Hornsby, Bill Hornsby.
Sure, a legend.
He teach cinema photography class in Brooklyn College. So he is a really good professor. He opened up about how to shoot a scene, how to use Super 8 camera, how to shoot on 16. He taught us a lot about lighting. And then at that point, I kind of like, to be good cinema photography, you need to learn about lighting. And that's how I got interested into lighting.
Yeah, no, for sure. Bill Hornsby definitely was by far my biggest influence at school. And same thing, I kind of experienced the same thing. Like having sat and watched all these student films with him in the class, critiquing all of our movies, it really kind of made me appreciate the art telling stories through pictures and, through lighting and learning about lenses and threading film through cameras and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He just made me fall in love with cinematography. And that's kind of why I pursued a career, in lighting. So you got out of film school, you started working on some student films, and then what was like your first big project that you worked on in after college?
No, I work on I Imagine as a production assistant. That was a big one for me. It's supposed to like there's no people on the street, so we kind of like lock down every corner.
Yeah, which in New York City it's incredible for a production to come into town and close off streets. And, in these shots in the movies, you don't see a single person. It takes so many people and so much hard work to get that actually done.
Yeah, there's a lot of CGI, but there's also a lot of like practical. They actually block off all the street to, not letting any people to go on the street,
On these early projects, were you working as a production assistant and an electrician, or did you start first as a production assistant and then graduate into being an electrician?
Doing college, yes. Doing college, I was doing between PA and electric. And then after I graduate, I was more focused on doing electric work.
Was there any kind of like point in your career where you started kind of like really picking up steam and working on a bunch of different projects?
I was able to get into a tight crew with some people, I was working different projects as an additional electric. And then this one crew saw me that I'm working hard. And then they kind of like keep calling me back. And then I kind of like roll into that crew. It happened a few more time with different crews, so it kept me constantly getting work.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm just going to explain to people who aren't familiar with like our industry, but at least on the grip and electric side of things where we work, there are small kind of like little groups, almost like small gangs of grips and electrics who kind of work together. And when one of them gets a job, they have their crew, like maybe 5 or 10 people that they consistently call all the time, and they go from job to job to job, like a music video, a commercial, a film, back to a commercial, and they kind of move in packs. And when you get into these like small grip and electric lighting crews, it's great because it produces a lot of consistent work for us.
Yeah, and then finally I able to like go get into a crew that we always do like music video and commercial with high budget. So I able to just ride with this crew before I turned union.
Do you remember who was in those crews?
It was Matt Sharkey. He was the gaffer. I was besting a lot for him. My friend Justin Situ is there. One of the guy, Neil Chen, is there. And then Hunter is over there. That's the electric department. The grip, we have like Che. Sometimes we have Rob Smith. We call him Smitty.
Smitty, yeah.
We have John Chim. So it was a really fun crew.
And you mentioned you were besting. What exactly is besting for people who don't know?
What we do is kind of a logistic managing and doing hiring, doing also managing. So the gaffer, the lighting, the head of the lighting department, the gaffer. So sometimes he focuses more onto the creative side of it, talking to the DPM director and producers and creating the shot. And I'm the right-hand man of the gaffer. Most of the time, we have to set the leg shot where they prepare the crewman, prepare the crew for the leg shot. When they get there, they could do the creative magic,
So you're basically preparing the next shot throughout the day. So when they're done shooting whatever shot they're on, they can move into the next setup, and everything's already set, and electricity is already run, all the lights are set, and everything, right?
Yeah, management, logistic, paperwork.
Were there like any huge jobs that you guys did together? What kind of projects were you working on?
We did like Kanye West music video, Lady Gaga, Beyonce, John Legend. Yeah, we did some fun projects.
And this was all non-union work, right?
Correct.
I know this is like a while back, but like, what was like, a lot of filmmakers at home may be curious about like, rates and stuff like that. What were your rates back then, like, in terms of like how much did it like an electrician make per day?
I believe it was 600, 575, 550 per day.
Cool, for like gaffer, key grip, and best boy, or?
Yeah. But key grip, no, Gaffer, best boy, electric.
So yeah, it's good money. So you were, a few years out of college, you were making between $500 and $600 a day or so.
That's probably more than a few years. That's probably toward the end of my non-union career. It's about 6 year in, maybe probably 6 year in.
When you got out of college, do you remember what your like early rates were?
My early rate were probably 100 or 150.
Yeah, I remember those days. They sucked.
Yeah. it is work. Out of college, I probably earned, I would say, 30,000 or 30 to 60,000 per year. Yeah, it was not enough at all.
Yeah, it's tough, but it's at the same time, it's like you got to work hard and work long hours. But now it's like you look back, like you learned so much in those early days because you're just on set for so many hours and you're working with so many different kinds of people. And the pay sucked, but it was a good time. It was a good learning lesson. It was like a college after college, basically.
Yes, and then from them, I moved slowly up work, like 200, 250, and then 300, and then eventually moved into the bigger job.
Now, did you have to like negotiate your rates on a job per job basis, or was it just like your crew would negotiate your rate for you? How did that work out?
When you are as a gather position, then you have to negotiate the rate with the unit production manager.
So yeah, so back then, I guess the gaffer that was part of your crew would basically negotiate the rates for his or her crew.
Correct.
So I guess the years around 2013, 2014, and you're working like a ton. Was like you mentioned earlier that you'd done a few music videos. Any big artists that you worked on?
That's this interesting one. I worked with a Beyonce music video. We start shooting from around 8 a.m. and then by 8 p.m. the producer came to me. At that point we already worked for 12 hours. Producer came to me and said, "Ben, we gotta go for another 12 hours. Can you hire 10 more guys?"
So it's like a 24-hour shoot.
Yeah, she already expecting that. We haven't finished the shoot yet. So at that point, I call around, I text, I do Facebook. I only able to find 4 people.
And wait, how many people did she ask for you to find? 5?
10.
She wanted you to find 10 electrics to work on this project, 12 hours in to work another 12 hours, basically, right?
Yes.
And the rate was how much?
I believe at that point, I think it was like $500 per each. Yeah.
So you basically were calling people and texting people like, "Hey, can you work this job? I got 500 for the day. Come in like right away."
Correct.
And how did that work out?
It didn't work out so good. I stretched around for like 2 hours. I only found 4 people, and then we just have to do what we got to do. We ran power out in the ring. It was tough.
How many people were on the crew originally?
I believe we have at least 8 to 10 people.
Wow. Okay, so they had a budget.
Yeah, they do. At one point, we had breakfast, lunch, dinner, breakfast. It was keep going.
And did you sleep at all? Like, did you just work straight? Or were you able to like sleep at all on set, or like doze off for a few minutes or an hour or two? Like, how does that work when you're working 24 hours a day?
We work straight. At one point, I was standing up on set, and I was like dozing off. The AD just tapped my shoulder. "Hey Ben, just walk. Just go take 5. We'll be all right. We keep going. We keep going."
The film industry, love it. So that's wild. So like you were basically working for 24 hours a day. Like what happens? Like when they didn't have the crew, like because you said you were only able to find 4 people.
Yeah. We just have to work it out, We just have to work harder.
Now, I'd spoken to you earlier. You mentioned that like you'd worked with like with a gaffer. Is it Matt Shockey?
Yes.
So he was like a New York based gaffer.
He was.
And was he like he was like he was basically the guy in charge of like finding the crew work?
Yeah.
Like is he still in New York or what?
No. So that's kind of the end of my non-union career. The last few years of my non-union work, we were making good money, working on a lot of high value project. He moved back to LA, and I've been working with him so closely for last few of those years. And I kind of lost contact with other people, other the mini group, you know. So I went back to like doing a lower budget jobs, like $200, $300, and I wasn't able to get enough work. And at the time, I was turning like 26, I believe. Around that time, I was thinking I'm going to lose my insurance. That's when I tried to apply for the union.
So basically, you were working with this guy. He moved back to LA, and then kind of all of your contacts and work dried up. And you said you went from working about $500 to $600 a day, and you went back to like $250 a day, right?
Yeah, correct.
Ugh, that sucks.
Yeah.
So what happened? So you took this huge pay cut, and you weren't working as often. Like what did you do next? Like what was the next step in your career?
I tried to join the union.
That's Local 52, right?
Yes.
Okay. And for those of you who don't know, like Local 52 is like a trade union here in New York that represents grip and electrics on commercials and movies and stuff.
So at that point, I was around 26. I was going to lose my insurance. So I was like looking into how to join the union, Local 52. It took me around a year and a half, 2 years to get in. Back then, the test is about every 6 months. So I applied for it. I got rejected the first time. The second time, I got accepted my application. I was able to take the test. It took me 2 times to pass the test. And then at that period, once you pass the test, you have to get rolled in. Someone in the membership have to stand in for you in the meeting, say, "Oh, Ben is a good worker," and then people have to roll you in. So it took me 2 votes. The second vote, someone in the membership stood up for me and said Ben is a good worker, and then I was able to get in at the second vote.
So you'd worked a bunch of shoots prior as like non-union shoots, and starting in, I guess, 2014, you started working on union shoots. What would you say like were the big differences between working non-union jobs and then jumping over to working union jobs?
It's definitely more stable in the union world. You work, there's a lot of TV show in New York shooting. So you will work, your schedule will be basically working Monday to Friday for 6 months or 10 months. So my first job was this Netflix Devil TV show. It was first season. So it was for 6 months. So we work Monday to Friday and we get paid every Thursday. It's more stable and we got health insurance and pension.
Yeah. Which is important. Yeah, as a freelancer, you don't have that. And knowing that when you retire, you're going to have, a pension and a retirement plan and our health insurance, it's very important to be able to get that.
Oh, yeah. You will feel your life change. As working in non-union, you always have to chase after your check, You sometimes you working, you have worked so much in that month, but you have no money to pay for rent,
Yeah, for sure. You got to wait in a whole another 30 days.
Yep.
Which is actually something that a lot of people don't know about the film industry is that a standard practice called net 30, which is basically you do a job today and you have to wait 30 days to get paid, which is the normal, I would say. There's some big companies that do net 60s and net 90s where, if you work a couple days today, you're not going to get paid for at least 3 months. And it's really, really hard as a freelancer to budget and, know how much money you're going to have at the end of the month because you have to wait so long to get payment from some of these jobs. So obviously, for you, I think having a paycheck every Thursday makes your life so much easier to manage and plan out.
Correct. And on the creative side, non-union, I feel like you always have more input working on non-union shoot. Smaller scale and it's more tighter with the crew and you're able to put more creative thinking into it.
That's working on non-union shoots.
Correct. If you are on a union shoot, you always feel like because there's so many different departments in there and it's a bigger scale, you will feel like you will have less creative input.
Yeah, I mean, I've just day played on a few union jobs, and I've noticed the same thing that when I work on union jobs, it feels a lot more like the military, that there's very clear-cut, distinct departments. Everyone has a specific task, and they're doing it basically in order to keep this machine moving. And it is a machine because there's so many moving parts on these big union shoots where you have to, I think, have that kind of structure in order to kind of get the job done within 12 hours. Whereas, yeah, a lot of like non-union shoots, as a grip, I can help the camera guy, switch a card in his camera or help hold the lens, help the camera out a lot more and be more hands-on. Yeah, I think when you're in the union, you're not supposed to touch other departments' stuff, right?
Correct. We still could help out, but not it's to the point, That's a really key line that you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. But I mean, yes, it is become more mechanical way that you're just doing what you focus to do, But it kind of make you more professional into the task that you have to do.
What was the application process like, and what was the test like that you actually had to take?
I took the test first time, they failed me, and then I took the second time, they passed me. So the test is there was I think there was about 5 different parts of the test. First one is practical, identify light bulb. There's about 30 different light bulb on the table. You have to name them. The code of the bulb, and then
So each bulb has a different kind of code that you have to pick out?
correct. It's the NC code. Like by picking it up, you need to know what kind of bulb is that. We need to know the NC code for all those bulbs too. And then they want to see if you know how to rig a light onto a pipe. How to test the light, how to tie the knot to safety the light.
Sure.
One part is identify all the equipment. They will just pawn that this how much what is this cable. You were able to pick it up, but by picking it up, you need to know, is it 25-foot, 50-foot, or 100-foot cable.
And how did you prepare for the test? Like, how did you study for it?
By talking with people, you kind of know like what was on the test. By working on set, by talking to people who already took the test, you kind of preparing for it. I go to like rental house. I went to there used to be like Paramount. Now it's called Insight. We're able to go in and like ask them like, can I look at all the bulb? I studied the bulb by looking at it, by picking it up. This the 1K EGD.
Sure. It was hands-on. And was there like a written portion to the test?
Yes, that's one of the 5 parts. The written test, it took about 2 hours. It's about like 120 questions.
So when you decided to apply, what did you use to study? Was there certain books or websites that you had to go to learn this stuff?
Yeah, there's this lighting books written by this guy, Harry C. Box. We basically studying that book. You have to memorize the definition, memorize a lot of terms. So you have to understand the whole book, front to back and back to front.
It's kind of like a Bible that you had to memorize, basically.
Yeah, the written test take about 2 hours. It's about 120 questions. They keep changing every year, so you only know so much. You could only talk to the people who took the test before, but the test will adjust each time.
Sure. And now, so I know you mentioned there's a bunch of like benefits. Was there any kind of like detriments of being in the union after you joined?
The hour, the money is good. The hour is long. It's we do about 60 to 65, sometimes 70 hours per week. At the border of when do you say no to those hours, the hour is really tough.
Sure.
Not that many people could work 12 to 14 hours a day or sometimes 15 hours a day, It's really tough. And it's tough for your relationship,
So it's interesting that you mentioned the work of 12 to 14 hours a day. Do you have a girlfriend right now, or like a wife or anything, or what?
Yeah, I have a girlfriend for 10 years.
Wow, for 10 years. Congratulations. That's awesome. So has like your long hours, has it ever affected like your relationship, or is she like understanding of like your insane hours, or what?
She also did freelance, so she understands it. At first it's really tough. You could try to schedule a day and stuff like that, and then you have to cancel it. Within 6 months to the first year, you kind of know if you found the right partner. She or he have to understand your schedule. If they cannot stand by with you with that schedule, I don't think it'll be a good idea to keep continuing the relationship.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I know from just personal experience, my wife, she has more like corporate hours. So 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. At the very beginning of our relationship, I know that she would see me on the couch on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and not understand like, why are you sitting at home during business hours? Like, I think she thought I was like a lazy dude. And I mentioned to her that like, my job is binary. I'm either working or I'm not working. I have no control over what days I'm working, how long I'm going to work. It took her a while to kind of get used to it. Now she's totally understands because we've been together for so long. But it was definitely a point of contention at the very early stages of our relationship. And yeah, the other thing that I want to just kind of share really quickly is when you're in the film production industry, you can't make plans because your schedule is at the mercy of the production. So if somebody asks me like, hey, do you want to get dinner tonight at 8 p.m. or on Tuesday at 8 p.m., I say I have no idea if I'm going to be on set because I'd like to go. But if the production's still rolling at 7:45, I'm not going to be able to leave there for at least another few hours. So that's the other really hard part of working in production is not knowing or not being able to really plan ahead because you're just at the mercy of production.
Correct. Even the production say we will have a short day today. You knew better that you shouldn't make plan for it for that night because anything could change.
Yeah, even to this day, I still fall for it every time. They're like, oh, yeah, it's going to be a half a day. And then I get excited. I tell my wife, like, hey, babe, I'm going to be home by 3 p.m. today. It's going to be great. And then I end up calling her at 6 p.m. being like, hey, babe, I'm not going to be home till midnight.
Yep.
Things have changed.
Yep. They all have creative way to add the longer day.
I think a lot of producers who produce in non-union shoots, they use that as kind of a bargaining chip. So they offer me a lower rate and they tell me like, hey, today's going to be a shorter day. Can you work for half the rate? And at first, early in my career, I would say, yes, no problem. It's, I understand it's going to be half day, so I'll work for half the rate. And so many times that short day turned into like a 10, 12, or 13-hour day. And I was locked in at like half of the rate of what I was earning. So nowadays, when producers come to me and tell me that, like, it's going to be a short day, can you give us like a bigger discount? I say no, because my commitment to your production is all day. I can't work 2 different jobs in one day. So if you want to hire me, I have to charge you a full day rate, whether it's an hour-long job or a 12-hour-long job.
Exactly.
It's going to be the same rate. Like, I don't know, and the producer doesn't know how long the job is actually going to be.
Yeah. As a crew member, you kind of need to commit to your job and you need to love your job in order to stay that long, 12 to 14 hours, and able to deal with the uncertainty of schedule changes. If you don't love this industry, it's really tough for you to stay. I see people that's really grumpy, still working every day, and I see people hate it and still working. In the back of my mind, why were you still doing this?
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that. From having worked with a lot of older people, and when I say older, people that are probably north of like 55, 60, the divorce rate in our industry is so high. And I think a lot of that stems from the long hours that we work. It's so hard, I think, to have a family and be on set for 12, 14 hours a day. Being married is tough because my wife has to deal with it. But now I have 2 young children at home, and I tell producers now, like, I can't really work 14 hours anymore. When I was in my early 20s, it was no problem. I actually liked working long days because you create these really tight friendships, and it's kind of like going to war, and you're at, you're in the bunker with your friends. But nowadays, the older I get, I'm like, man, 10 hours. I'm like looking at my clock. I'm like, how soon can I get home right now?
I'm still at that period of day. I'm spending more time with the crew I work with than with family. And hopefully it will change soon.
So you've been basically in the union now since 2014. What kind of projects have you worked on?
That's mostly TV show in New York, but I do in between jobs. I go on movie, TV show. Right now I'm working on this TV show called Scenes from a Marriage. And normally we'll be working on the team that I with. Normally we work on Billions on Showtime and Ray Donovan. Ray Donovan just got canceled, so that was finished. But that's what I was working on the last few years. Recently, I also work on Home Alone. They did a reshoot in New York.
Like the movie Home Alone?
And yes.
Oh, wow. Is that out yet or no?
They just finished the last reshoot day in New York.
Are you able to say if Macaulay Culkin is in it or no?
I think you could Google it.
Okay. That's awesome. I love that movie growing up. I still love the original and the Home Alone in New York. So I'll definitely see it with my son for sure.
Yeah.
So you're basically doing all these like big movies, these TV shows and stuff like that. And I know that like some point you started this app now. I think it was back in 2014 or so. You started creating this app called the Available app. Tell me what was the process of how you started that app?
So when I was turning 30, it hit me that I'm like about 1/3 of my life. My crisis, it hit me at that moment, I was like, what should I do with the rest of my life? So I was looking around, and then I stumbled upon this book called The Millionaire Fast Lane, and it was talking about how what we doing normally people is doing is trading out time for money. If I work, I get money. But if I don't work, I don't get money. So I spend all my time just for earning. How can you earn a passive income even while sleeping? And then I look back to see if there anything I could create to generate that passive income. And I was thinking about staffing, cooling up, because from my experience doing non-union with the Beyonce music video and all the way to union shoot with TV show, movie. On both sides of the world, we have the staffing problem. And that's when the idea came about 2015. And I started drawing down on paper, like how can I make this happen?
So when you were on set of like the Beyonce video, was that like the moment that you basically started thinking about like creating this app, or was it like?
It's both connected together. At that moment, I was frustrated, and then it kept happening, that kind of staffing problem. I always have to, at the last minute, I have to like hiring people, and I wasn't able to get what I want. I couldn't able to see who's available. So that's like the beginning of my idea. And then after reading this book and then try to find a problem that I need to fix that I know. So that's all come together.
Interesting. Okay. So you read the book and then you were like, I'm going to build an app. What was that process like? Because I think a lot of filmmakers have had ideas for apps. I know I have. I have no background in computer coding and working with like Swift or any of those programming languages. So what was your process like?
So it kind of come into a big circle. As we talk about, I went to college for computer science first and then switched my major to film. So I already understand program C and HTML. So I have a little bit programming background. So at first I start putting the beta version together. I learned Swift. It wasn't that hard for me. I took my time to learn it and able to build the very rough beta version of this app after from my diagram. And then I showed it around to people, my close friend, and then they were like, oh, that's pretty cool. They want to see more. And then I spent a few $1,000. I hired someone to build a better version of the beta test.
And how did you find that person to do it? Did you find them on the internet, or did you do like a Google search, find someone?
I think I went to Upwork.
Yeah, I've used Upwork to hire freelancers as well. It's an awesome service.
Yeah, so it was really it was an rough like beta version. I just want to able to functioning a little bit here and there, not as it's not as huge a beta yet. So it was just a rough one, and we're able to test it with 100 people with that. From that, the traction getting more. And at that point, I decide I may have to spend more time and money and take a step forward to actually...
The development process.
Yes, to actually do it. So I hired a team in India to do a better first beta version of it. And we eventually released that, like, I think 2016. October. That's our first beta version released on the App Store.
So it took you from about 2015 to 2016 from like the early stages of planning to the release of like the early beta version?
Yes.
Okay. So about a year from inception to soft launch, I guess we would call it.
Yeah.
Now, so you mentioned you hired someone in India to design and to code this app. How were you giving them like information? Were you like hand drawing ideas? Were you designing it on like a CAD program on the computer? What was that process like?
Oh, it was really complicated. It's like making a film. That's like at first you have the script and then storyboard, shot list, talking director, DP. So I was showing them what I have already, the beta version, and then on top of that I drew different diagram on paper, and then I sent to them, and then they sent me back a wireframe. Before they do anything, they sent me back the diagram of how it looked.
You said that they sent you a wireframe. What exactly is a wireframe?
It's like kind of blueprint of how the app could look like. It's not clickable at all. It just like diagram. It's showing you this page like could be like this where the button is, and showing you the next page is supposed to be will be look like this, So you kind of get a sense of idea what the app will be look like, the beta.
So basically like mock-up blueprints, basically.
Yes.
Sure. Okay, so 2015 was when you first started the app. 2016 was the early launch of the beta. When did you officially like roll out first version, I guess, of the app?
Around 2018 June. That's the first version we released.
So 2015 to 2018, that's 3 years. You were still working a full-time job in the union doing these TV shows, and then you were, I guess, working at night, or what was your life like during those 3 years?
It was tough. So when I was outsourcing with the Indian company, I basically slept about between 2 to 3 hours per night while I'm still working on set, like at least 65 hours per week. It was tough because the time zone different. So I was working on set. I have to test the app at the morning. At nighttime, I have to give the feedback with the Indian team and get on a phone call with them and tell them what's the problem.
So basically, like you're working on your union job, you're getting off, say, at 9 p.m. And when most people are going home and going to sleep, you're basically talking to some dude in India who's just getting to work. And then you guys are kicking around ideas and developing this app.
It was tough. And then eventually we were getting more traction with the app, and I was investing more and more money. And at that point, I cannot keep doing this. No sleep, getting really tired, and keep spending a lot more money. I want to find someone on the state side. I want to find a co-founder that actually will help me building this app. So I spent about 2 years look for this person, and I finally found it.
And how did you guys meet? Did you guys meet online, or how did you find him?
Yeah, I found him about 2007. This website called cofounderlab.com.
Cool. I didn't even know that existed.
That's how I found him. Prior to that, I was attending a lot of meetup event. I was asking around with different friends and family if they know anyone would join my venture. I already had this beta version now. It's on App Store. It's getting a lot of traction already. I need someone to help me actually to bring it to the next level, who actually care about it, who actually think about the app idea with me.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting thing that you bring up of being an entrepreneur and having this idea and really trying to create this business. It's impossible for a single person to kind of create these apps and create like a business like that. And one of the hardest parts, I think, is to find someone to be either a partner or someone that's as passionate about your idea as you are. Because I think a lot of really good ideas die on the vine because the founder or the person who had the idea doesn't have people around them that support that idea, that believe in that idea, that see the merit in such a useful tool.
Yeah, the most common failure for startup is the founder team have problem.
What happened next, I guess? So you guys launched 2018. What was the initial reaction to this app?
Oh, so we released it 2018 around June. And the first thing I did was I tested the water. I posted on Facebook in the Grip at Electric group. That's how it slowly rolled out, and it got people interested. By 2019, I able to go to different trade shows in New York, New Jersey, and then eventually I went to Toronto, LA, and Atlanta to promote the app, and people love it. So 2019 was like our first official year getting a lot more traction. We able to help people to connect in the app and help them find more jobs, give them more opportunity that they don't have normally. With this digital platform, you're able to expand your network. It also helps UPM producer or Best Buy able to help them easily find workers.
And were your friends in network here in New York, were they giving you tips on how to improve the process?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of people passionate about this app because it's really useful. It's useful too for them on set. So they were helping me, sending me emails, sending me texts, sending me message in the app, telling me, oh, maybe you should do this, maybe this. We were constantly updating the app every month. But it's tough. Me and my co-founder still have a day job. So we have a list of to-do lists. I think we have fixed more than 1,000 problem already within the app that people submitted, and there's still another 1,000 is on the to-do list because everything it takes time, and it depends on our schedule too. Like on our day job, it get tough with time. And I understand that, nothing comes easy. If it's easy, everyone would be doing it.
What exactly is the Available app? I probably should have asked you this a little earlier. What exactly is the Available app? Who benefits from the app?
Available app is a employment management platform that helps filmmakers easier for staffing and scheduling. We're able to help people connect and network and finding crew on the app. It benefits both sides. It benefits the hiring manager, the EPM, the best boy, the ADs. It's also benefit for the freelancers. The way you use this is you simply add people into the contact list. With our function, you're able to just with a click, you could see who's available. And instead of like calling 200 people at a time, or instead of calling or texting everyone, you will be easier just clicking a click. You could see who's available.
So basically, the app imports your contact list from your phone, and then based on the people that are in your contact list, you're able to connect with them and see what their availability is like, and basically hire them for different jobs.
We want to create a community, not just a job platform. So we help you to see who's available within a click in your network.
So it's kind of like almost like a social network within the app that basically allows you to connect with your friends and see who's available.
Correct. We build a lot of social networking function in the app. We also focus on the employment management part. So first you add people into the contact list, and then you're able to see the availability easier. And from then on, you could easier to see who you want to book. You also, if you don't see anyone available, you also have a choice to like post a job, and then your friend could able to share and tag to other people, and then it become kind of like referral method of it. You're able to hire your friend on this job. There's also like different kind of group you could join to expand your network. Like once you join different group in the app, you're able to tap into more people availability. You're able to see the schedule, and you're able to post job into those groups.
So these groups that that you join in the app, like they're like I guess a department. There's like a grip and electric group. There's a sound group. It's by different departments.
Yes, anyone could create their own group. There's a grip and electric group in New York. There's a grip and electric group in LA. There's somewhere in Finland they have like group for audio people.
Wow. So this is user generated. The users create the groups, or do you create the groups?
The user create the group. So if you have a company, you could create a group. So you could transform your Excel database into this group setting and make it more actively community network within the app.
So if like I'm a producer on a film set and I work with 30 freelance production assistants that I hire on the different jobs that I do, I would open the app and then see which of those production assistants are available on any given day and be able to kind of quickly hire them instead of texting or emailing them 100 times to find out their availability and explain to them the rate and location and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because if I'm a PA, but I was telling you, I'm available next Monday to Friday, by the end of this call, you're probably forgetting about my schedule. With this app here, you're able to like just click on days and that you're available, and then everyone in your network will know your schedule. Every group that I join, people in there, they would know my schedule. So for producers, it's easier for them to see who's available with a click.
Yeah, 100%. I have a small business and I'm constantly trying to find people that are available. So I have, I'd say 15 or 20 grips and electrics that I hire on multiple times a week to do different jobs with different clients. And for me, one of the hardest and most time consuming things is the crewing process, because I send out our lighting vans with crews. And when a producer calls me and says like, hey, are you available? I am available. Like I can send you a van, but it requires for me to send out crew that's available. So I have to basically text, call, email 15 different people to see who's available, who's not available. Some of them take forever to get back to me. And it's just like that waiting process could cost me a job. So for me, like the faster I can get that crewing process done, the faster I can say yes to the producer and faster I can lock down that job and start preparing for that job.
Yes, exactly. And you could always keep growing your group, you know. You could add more people into it, and then people within the group, they could share jobs to each other. So it become a community network supporting each other. It's not just a one-sided database.
Yeah, I mean, like I've been on different shoots and I've heard people talking about the app. And one of the things that I thought was pretty cool is that if I get a call for a job and I'm not available, or if a producer reaches out to me through the app and I'm not available, I can very quickly find out what other gaffers do I work with that I know that I trust. Can I pass this job off to really quickly and be able to kind of like refer jobs to my buddies who I know are competent, who I can trust, and give the producer who's, a friend of mine, I can give them someone that's going to be able to do the job well, represent me if I'm not there.
Yes. So that's what we try to disrupt this industry with this new technology. And with the streaming content is blowing up right now. There's Disney, there's Netflix, there's HBO, there's Hulu.
Yeah, I heard actually Netflix is building a studio in Brooklyn.
Yes, they're building one in Bushwick. Yeah, so a lot of content is being made, but we still using this outdated system we have. The Excel database, we calling and testing. There isn't a efficient way for us to dealing with this problem yet. But the jobs that is coming in New York, LA, Atlanta, it have been growing so much each year.
And that's actually something that I've been thinking about recently with like the whole coronavirus thing. It's like it's becoming so hard to network with people because we can't really meet up in person. We can't go and have beers and kind of talk about the industry. So having kind of like a digital way to kind of network with people and see who's available and be able to kind of see like, okay, so my initial group is not available for a job, but I can find somebody else. And very quickly I can find out, okay, this person is in the union or they're not in the union, or I need to find someone that can operate a dolly and has experience, with camera. And the app kind of allows me to find people that very quickly. I don't have to call up a bunch of different people and ask for references and referrals. It's just I can really get the data very quickly, which is cool.
Yeah. So once you get in there, build your network, it will work itself out, help you streamline the process that you always been doing.
So now that you're at this point with the app, like where do you see the app kind of going, and what kind of things are you working on? What kind of direction are you going to see it in about 2-3 years or so?
Right now we building desktop version that we've been pushing it because we just have so much to have to build. The next thing we just try to focus on building the desktop version to able to help people in office to easier to access the platform. Producers, UPM, most of the time they'll be in the office. We build the app first because most of the crew on set. But now we try to move it, have both, so it benefit the whole spectrum of the crew.
If you're a producer like in an office, it's just much easier because you have your laptop or your iMac kind of open in front of you to be able to kind of, see kind of who's available on a bigger screen.
Yes, a desktop version.
How would like a school implement available app into like their curriculum or into their process?
We've been talking with different kind of school or non-profit organization and union, maybe able to try to adapt the desktop version. A school create a group and they could have students from freshman to senior years join the group, and those students easily able to find people that's available for their project, because most of the time right now you could probably find student in your class who's available for a project, but with this app it broke the boundary.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because one of the things that I do as a small business owner is like I'm constantly looking for students also who are from Pratt or from Brooklyn College or SVA, because as a small business I don't have a ton of money, so I know that some of the jobs that we do on set it's not very involved, and I'd like to basically meet young filmmakers, give them some of these like low impact jobs, and then also train them to hopefully help out my business in the future. So it'll save me money by hiring a film production student who's hungry and looking to kind of dip their toe in the in the work waters. When you're talking about this, I'm kind of like looking into the future. It'd be awesome if like film students could work on each other's projects and use the app that way, but also production companies or producers or small business owners can find out from these find out who's available to do basic PA jobs or to assist on set somehow.
Yeah. And alumni always want to help out the student. And with this, alumni easily able to join, like us, we would probably join the Brooklyn College group and help those students out and gain more experience on the field. I could easily go in the group and see which student is available, and I could hire them on our set.
Sure. Yeah, like mentorships or even like internships too. Like for students who want to learn more, they can kind of connect with alumni and intern maybe for them.
Yeah, even pay job. So now we take away the burden that Brooklyn College film office have, because most of the time they will get email from alumni like I need someone tomorrow, Monday, and they will be probably scrambling around to see who's available, who is around and stuff like that. With this app, alumni able to easily tap into that resources.
Yeah, I remember when we were in college, there was a cork board where people would kind of just put up like a little sign saying like, "Hey, I'm crewing up for the student movie. It's going to be awesome. Like, who's available? We're shooting 5 nights overnight and stuff like that." And
It's a streamlined way to do it.
okay, so moving on now from the app, the next big thing that I think everyone's talking about right now, and we still haven't really fully wrapped our heads around, is the coronavirus and COVID-19 and the past year, how crazy it's been for our industry. Just what was that like for you when everything started happening?
Yes, I was working on this TV show, Billions. We were on season 5. We still have like few episodes left to shoot. It was like, I think it was like March 13th. It was like Friday. That was like the last day of we get shut down, and we were expecting just shut down for 2 weeks, and then we could come back. But we won't be back until March 1st. Start shooting again. It'll be a year.
Wow.
So we nobody expect that we will have a 1 year pause to finish season 5 of shooting.
So is the show canceled right now, or is it on hiatus?
It's not canceled. Wow. we will be going back to raking in middle of February. And first day of shooting will be March 1st of this year.
I mean, you said rigging, like you're going to go into the studio and start hanging the lights and building the sets
yes,
and stuff again?
Correct. Then new set, better. There could be new set, more amazing character development and all that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I remember like the Friday the 13th. I remember I was at Gary's Loft in Manhattan.
Okay.
We were doing some kind of commercial. I forget what it was. And the producers were talking about some kind of like virus and this COVID thing in Seattle. And I was like, whatever. It's just like the flu. It's going to pass. It's no problem. And, over the coming days, like all of my jobs just started disappearing. Every one of them. Just each day I would check my calendar or get an email from a producer and be like, hey, actually this shoot's pushing for a month or 2 months. And some of them just flat out canceled. Within, I'd say 3 days, I went from having a full calendar to just having nothing. And it was like, what am I going to do now? And I kept thinking like, this is like just a minor thing. It's going to pass pretty quick. And I got angry because I felt like the media kind of hypes up things generally to make it more dramatic and stuff like that. And I was really getting upset, being like, the media is fanning this whole thing. It's not really that serious. Let's move on. Let's get back to work. And the longer it went on and the more deaths that went up, I was like, fuck, this is pretty serious. Not working for.
Yeah. It was for 6 months. I get back on at work the beginning of September.
And was the union communicating with all of the union members about like what was happening and what the plans were throughout the 6 months?
Yes, our union keep communicating with us a little bit in a way. We still get email from the union saying, keeping update. Of course, it's a pandemic. Nobody know what's going on next. Our union try our best. Keep an update and see when we're going back to work.
Is there like dates where they said like, hey, you know what, we're going to be open in June, and then come June they were like, hey, we're going to be open in July, and like were jobs like kind of pushed back, or did they ever commit to any certain kind of dates that changed?
No, the union never tell us a specific day. It was just like more rumor talking around within our college. Okay, it probably coming back in April, it coming back in June, and then July, and then eventually it actually happened in September. Jobs slowly starting back up.
Wow. So from March 13th until September, you did not work?
Correct.
Wow. That's crazy. That's so nuts. And what did you do like during all that downtime? Did you travel? Did you just kind of stay put? What did you do?
I stay put. I try not to get crazy. I try to be as careful as I could. And I learned a lot of stuff. It was this depressing time. It's a unplanned vacation, nobody thought of, and it's pretty depressing with all the news every day. and I try to distract myself to like learning more about marketing. How can I do better with marketing for my startup company?
You still live in Bushwick, correct?
Correct.
Bushwick, Brooklyn, for those of you who aren't familiar with New York or who are new to the area, Bushwick is kind of a neighborhood in Brooklyn that it's kind of like the mecca of freelance filmmakers, I feel like, in New York. I'd say 8 out of my 10 friends who work in the industry live in Bushwick or live close to Bushwick in Brooklyn. A lot of just the neighborhood is made up of so many freelancers. And it's just interesting to see with this whole pandemic thing, like every freelancer was standing still. We didn't have jobs. We didn't have bosses that were basically paying us. We were just relying strictly on unemployment. You know, Bushwick has just gotten progressively more and more expensive over the years to live there. But I think from what I've heard and seen online, like the rent prices have really dropped a lot because a lot of freelancers just flat out left New York. They couldn't afford to basically live in New York. It's not a cheap city to live in. And when you have 0 jobs and you're living on $500 or $600 of unemployment, it's just not enough, especially if you have a family and you have, you know, bills to pay. I feel like Bushwick and a lot of Brooklyn and New York just got rocked so hard by this pandemic because as a freelancer, like I said, there's no safety net. We don't have an HR department where we can ask questions. You know, my HR department was Facebook groups.
Yeah, totally agree. This pandemic is like a totally different experience. It will impact a lot of life.
So anyway, getting back to the pandemic is kind of tapering off a little bit. You guys started work back in September, you mentioned. What was that like, kind of going back to work after having had this 6-month hiatus?
It was scary at first. It's like you don't know how to react to it. You know, you go back, the production have you read a lot of documents, sign a lot of documents, watch video, COVID safety. They have us to do testing every week. We were at first we were going back to the rigging, just like clean up the stage to like wrap up the stage that the job that got canceled right out of it. So it was easy job. They keep the crew as minimum as possible. It's just mostly the grip and electric department in the building, in the studio, and they order food for us for lunch. So we will be all stay together in that building for 10 hours.
Sure.
Every day, Monday, Friday.
Was it harder to do the job because before you guys had budgeted for, let's say, I don't know, 10 people on grips and 10 people electrics, and then, you know, with the reduced crews, I'm sure that you guys were probably doing more work at this point because there were so many less people.
The producer was pretty nice about it. So we have smaller crew, but we have a little bit more time to do it. So we're able to work with that schedule to able to slowly work our way back to normal, kind of new normal.
And what about like the COVID officers? I know that from having worked on a bunch of non-union shoots, there was always like a COVID officer walking around asking people very politely to stay 6 feet apart and do stuff like that. Were there like COVID officers on these union shoots, and what was their role? And
yeah, it depends on the job. It could be 2 people team to like maybe 10 people team. The COVID officer could be someone with a PhD degree, someone just maybe used to be AD, you know, or it used to be a PA. It ranged differently, the COVID officer experience.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed is like there was just, for me, in the non-union world, work kind of started up again in June. Yeah, I think it was June 1st it started up, and then July 1st it was booming. It was kind of interesting because all those productions that were happening before Corona that were pent up, I think just all exploded in the June, and everyone was trying to shoot content before we got shut down again because we didn't know. And on every shoot that we were doing, there was these COVID officers, and a lot of the COVID officers weren't medics or anything like that. Like I worked, yeah, like you mentioned that there was an AD. I worked with an AD for years, and then all of a sudden she popped up on set one day as a COVID officer, and we were talking, and she said that when she changed her LinkedIn profile to list that she was a COVID officer, she booked like 15 days of work within a day, because there's such a big demand for COVID officers on all of these different kinds of productions. So she went and got certified in a course. I think she did a course online as well. And there was just this huge boom of like a new position that just kind of appeared overnight. And a lot of people were able to kind of get work by being certified as COVID officers.
Yeah, I'm happy for them getting work. But then the other thing is there's no standard for it.
Sure.
Like what is a good standard, like to be a COVID officer, you know, what kind of tests you should have, what kind of background you should have, because our safety is on their hand, you know. So that's the one of the thing I'm bummed out about it, you know.
What was the testing process like? Because, you were basically getting all these strangers essentially back in these big studios, and everyone was kind of working close together, and they were on film sets. Like, it's just not possible to socially distance at all times. There are going to be times where two people have to stand next to each other to, pull focus or to adjust something or, to place a prop. I'm sure that there was a lot of rigorous testing going on. What was that process like?
So we have different zoning. There's zone A, zone B, zone C. Whoever closer to the actor will be on zone A, and we zone A people we test about 3 times: Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And zone B tests 2 days per week, possible Tuesday and Thursday. And then zone C will test like one day per week.
And what was the testing like? Was it like those nasal swabs where they stick the Q-tip thing in your nose?
Yes. Most of the tests is PCR, like they stick the thing into your nose for 15 seconds, both nose. It wasn't present at all, but some it'll be easier, some day it'll be harder. Sure. It depends on the nurse.
Yeah, it's a very uncomfortable process for those who haven't gotten tested. You're saying that the testing was done on site, though?
Yeah, the testing done on site, so production make it easier for us to do it. If you are in the studio, they probably have it in the building. If you're like on location, they probably on a mobile bus, sure. On a trailer.
Yeah, for us, like in the non-union world, it was a total shit show because there was no... a lot of productions weren't testing on site. Producers would say, hey, are you available on Tuesday for a job? And I'd say yes. And they say, okay, well, can you go and get tested on Friday, the week prior, for us to know that you're COVID free? And that would basically require me to make all these calls, go on these different websites to find out which clinics were doing the COVID testing. And then I'd have to go to like the Bronx or Queens or Staten Island to actually get tested. And I'd have to, I'd arrive at some of the places, sit online for an hour and a half and get tested. And it was just such a pain in the ass because I wasn't getting paid for those days. Just having to give up an entire day's worth of potential work to go get tested for a job was such a pain in the ass. And it was just very chaotic. One thing I tried doing was creating a Google sheet, basically, that would list which clinics were doing COVID testing, how much it would cost, when the clinics were available. And I posted them in a few different Facebook groups to kind of alert other non-union filmmakers about, hey, be sure to go here if you need to get tested right away because they do rapid tests. Other clinics weren't doing rapid tests. They were doing the PCR tests, which took about 3 to 4 days for a turnaround. So that was another problem is like I'm available to work on Thursday, but the clinic that I'm, that I have an appointment for, they're going to have a 5 or 6 day turnaround on my COVID test. So by the time I know I'm clear, I won't be able to take that job because it's after the actual shooting day. So it was a stressful time. It was really, really tough.
Yeah. On most of the union job, we have PCR tests and rapid tests. So they're both options. They're available if they need to use the rapid test. And you're able to take it on site. Sometimes they have you go to NYU and they have partnership with them too. So you could just make an appointment and go there. You don't have to wait a long time at the hospital. You could just go to your appointment. And the PCR test that we have, it's only take about a day. Sometimes not even. It will come back. The result come back on the same day.
Is the testing done through like a private service, or does it go to a hospital or a clinic? Or
the one on site is private. Cool. On different job, they hire different company.
And what about like contact tracing? Were they doing contact tracing on sets, and what was that like?
Yeah, they do contact tracing on set. They will ask. The COVID team will interview that person who tested positive. Ask him around what did he do for the past 7 days or whatever they need to like know about, like who did he contact with, and then they will notify that crew member that you've been close contact with a positive person.
So like if I was on a shoot, I would just get a call randomly from a COVID officer saying like, hey, you've been in close contact with Ben. He had COVID and stuff like that way. Or was it anonymous or was it not anonymous? How did that work?
Yeah, they wouldn't even mention my name. They would just tell you that you've been in contact with a positive person.
That's got to be so stressful. Just being at work, you don't know who it was, and like you don't know if it was in your department and stuff like that. I can imagine how stressful that was for people that were going home to like families and had parents that were elderly and stuff. Getting that kind of call, it's tough.
Yeah, so it's good to back to work, but we still have to be really careful about
how you operate. Now, let me ask you a question. I know like a lot of corporate businesses issued pay cuts to a lot of employees because their businesses were so affected by by COVID. Did the union or did these shoots or productions, did they ever ask crew members to take a pay cut because of everything that happened, or is it still more or less the same rates, or how does that work?
Because we have a strong union and a really good contract, they cannot lower the rate that we already negotiated. With the COVID, we work shorter hours. Most of the job work shorter hours now, and they also cut down the manpower a little bit too.
Interesting. To kind of to compensate, I guess, for the.
Yeah, it's compensate for the spending and also for safety reason.
So what's next? I guess, you're on these shoots now, post-COVID. Where do you see yourself in a few years? Like, are you going to continue being in the union, or are you going to try to spend more time with the app? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
If possible, I would love to spend more time, able to go full time on focus on the app, within 5 years. That would be great. But I love both worlds. I love doing in the film industry. I love building my app to able to help people to find jobs and able to help them to find people,
So, I mean, as we kind of wrap up this interview, one thing that I've mentioned to you in this podcast is it's like helping the community to kind of understand film production, whether it's, being on set and understanding how to rig a light or set up a C-stand properly. But it's also like learning the business aspect of things. I thought it was really interesting when you mentioned that you read the book, I think it was The Millionaire's Fast Lane.
Yes.
Kind of thinking about like a second way to make income or make passive income and stuff like that. Are there any kind of like resources or advice that you would give to filmmakers who are, let's say, just starting out or who aren't from New York, who are thinking about moving to New York?
There's this PA program operated by the mayor office. It's called Make in New York.
Oh, Made in New York. Yeah, I think I've seen their logos and stuff around.
That's a PA program that kind of foster them how to being a PA on set. Like they go through like the walkie protocol and actually how to lock up on the street, and they connected them with the DGA, and
it's the Directors Guild of America.
Yeah, and then able to get them to different union jobs, to different jobs. Sorry, that's a really great program. There's also a DGA training program that you could look into. There's also this organization that we have partnership with. This this non-profit organization we have partnership with Will Work. They also have different program for young filmmakers.
What are they called? Will Work?
Yeah, REELWORK.
I'll put their link in the show notes too, just so people can find it.
They also provide different kind of program for young filmmakers to help them to get into the industry. They are also partnership with Paramount, HBO, Netflix, some other different network.
So they put their former students onto those shows that are being produced by Paramount and HBO?
Yes, and they have connection with them. They're able to get them on different jobs. And they also we were also partnership with Available App.
One of the things that I learned several years ago, maybe at this point, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, is the New York Public Library. It's free to join. You get a library card, and a lot of people don't even use the library card, or a lot of people haven't even been to the library here in New York. But when you have a library card, you have free access to lynda.com. You can learn any kind of software. So usually each of these pieces of software charge anywhere between $5 to $20 a month, $30 a month. But with your library card, you can go to lynda.com. You can have access and learn how to use Final Cut editing software, Premiere editing software. You can learn After Effects. You can learn business tools and stuff like that. And it's all free. It's all through the New York Public Library. So it's a really awesome, like New York specific resource that a lot of people don't know about. And I've just gotten a lot of benefits from being able to watch a lot of these tutorials on lynda.com. You can watch them on YouTube as well, but there are ads and it's kind of hard to find specific topics, and Lynda is just a really great resources for filmmakers, and having free access through the New York Public Library system is just an incredible resource, I think.
That's good to know. I didn't know that too. I will have to look it up.
Yeah, one last question to you that I was kind of curious about. What's the biggest thing you've noticed that's changed since COVID and going back to work?
I miss about shaking people's hand. I miss about that human connection, like really able to say good morning, shaking hand, and saying goodbye, good night, good job, able to like physically appreciate that person.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. There's just something to be said about shaking a person's hand and standing close to them when you're having a conversation. It's just human. It's a very like primitive form of like communication. And when you remove those two elements where you have to stand 6 feet apart and you can't physically touch someone, there's just this weird disconnect. And I just don't feel the same intimacy when I meet strangers as I do when like I said, like when I get to set and say hello, or at the end of the day, saying goodbye and wishing them well and saying goodbye. There's just this very awkward, disconnect where it's, I miss that. I think a lot of us miss that kind of a human connection.
Correct. It's not like I feel like it's not as like connecting, and I'm not really appreciating their work or something like that. It's like telling someone you did a good job 6 feet away. It's different. I cannot even see that reaction to what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure. I know for me, one of the main things that I miss is just like meals. Before COVID, like there was these really beautiful, elegantly laid out buffet tables with food that was being heated up and steam, and I could go to the very end and stick my fat fingers in like a cake and just like cut a nice fat piece for myself. And nowadays everything is boxed, and it's just like these box lunches. Everything is kind of served more or less cold. It sucks. It really sucks.
Yes. Yes, most of the time it'll be cold. Right now, it's just in a box.
This is actually for any entrepreneurs that want to basically create amazing COVID-friendly box meals. I think there's an opportunity there for success, because right now it's a sad state of affairs when you open up these boxes of cold meals and everything's kind of soggy, and it's just not nearly as delicious as it used to be.
Yeah. Can't wait to get back to normal.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so cool, man. So yeah, thanks for your time. Available app. How do people find you? How do people learn more about what it is and download it?
How could they find me? They could go to our website, theavailableapp.com, or they could go to the App Store to find us, both on Android and iPhone. They can contact me directly through email, bn.ng@theavailableapp.com.
Cool. And what about social media? Are you guys on any platforms like YouTube or Facebook or anything like that?
Yes, we are on Facebook, Instagram. Find us through Available App.
Cool. So at Available App or the Available App?
Just Available App. Find me through that handle.
Cool. All right. I'll put everything there in the show notes for people to be able to find you easily. Cool, man. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. It's really a pleasure. I loved just learning about, you and like where you came from and the whole union process of joining and being a part of that, and also just sharing your experience throughout this whole coronavirus. It's been a crazy year, and I think a lot of us need to basically hear about how we're doing. We haven't been in the same room for a long time with each other, so being able to kind of hear each other's stories, empathize, and relate to these things that we're all going through is going to be a really important process of moving forward and learning about ourselves, learning about our community. So thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure, man.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good one, and I'll see you on set. Okay, that's all she wrote for this week's episode. I just wanted to say thank you again to Ben for having come on the show to talk shop about his mobile phone application. And before I forget, if you go to our website, you can watch a 4-minute explainer video that I recorded with Ben, where he shows us exactly how his app works and some of the functions that helps filmmakers network with one another. Also, did I mention that the app is 100% free? So unless you hate saving money and you hate networking with other filmmakers in order to find work, go to your phone's app store and download it today. Lastly, I just wanted to say thanks to all the listeners for having tuned in and given me 90 minutes of your week. With each episode, I'm trying to interview different New York-based filmmakers in order to educate the rest of the community on different topics and industry trends. So if you have any comments or any ideas or would like to even come on the show, please let me know via our Facebook page. If you want to learn more about our podcast or listen to past episodes, visit our website at nycvideopodcast.com. I'm Tom Chavez. This is the NYC Video Podcast, and I hope you stay safe. Keep shooting, and I'll see you on set.